Greetings, everybody. It's Jim. This iconic image to the right of me is, of course, drawn by Errol Otis, the most stylized artist for Dungeons & Dragons. And it is also the cover for a special tournament module that was made in 1980. The thing is about this module is I'm going to go over it with you today, but the main things I want to go over is the ideas and the mechanics about what I've learned about Dungeons and Dragons, especially in the early days. And a lot of questions were answered in my head that I didn't know before. Today, I'm going to be going over with you about my review of the Hidden Shrine of Tamoachan from TSR. Okay, so I picked up my copy of the Hidden Shrine of Tamoachan just recently on my trek all the way from Washington State, going through all kinds of states on my way to Erie, Pennsylvania. I made my way through BYU, Idaho, my alma mater, Yellowstone National Park, Deadwood, where Wild Bill Hickok was shot. I even seen the Spam Museum. But the pinnacle of all my travels was to get to the Dungeon Hobby Shop in, of course, Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. And I really had some great adventures. I am going to talk about my visit to the Dungeon Hobby Shop. It was quite a nice little trip with tons of surprises, and I'll be going over that in the future video. But for right now, I'm going to be going over what I picked up while I was at said hobby shop, and this one was a signed copy by the authors, and the authors are Harold Johnson and Jeff Leeson. Learson, or is that Leeson or Learson? Leeson. And so let's go over what I learned from this module. All right, a little bit about the module. Now, the Hidden Shrine of Tamoachan is a tournament module. You were meant to take 3 pre-generated characters as a team, and your team would go through it, try to survive and get out, and you get points along the way as you, you find things. Most things are pretty, it goes from being very deadly to just pinging at you because they want to get you through it a little bit. But then there are places that it's just, oh, sorry, you're dead. Old school all the way. One of the things that's really nice about this is you can look at this map here is they really did a great job making it feel like you are in a hidden shrine, almost a pyramid, a mini pyramid, if you will. And everything just looks like way it would feel. And that's probably partially because they did some research on Aztec temples, probably, because this is based off of there's a whole Aztec motif to this whole thing, and you'll see that later on with the picture. So but there is a normal way that you could play it. See, the idea is to get your 3 characters into the adventure. Somehow you're just traveling and you kind of fell through like a pit or just a break in the earth, and you find yourself within the hidden shrine, and then you try to get out. That's the idea of it, and shenanigans are already underway as you start the game. You could play more straight-laced and just say, hey, your party, not pre-generated characters, find the head of the shrine, because you can, when you get out, basically you get to the head of the shrine of where you would normally walk in, and you could start that way, just with your own characters. Of course, you could start that way, falling through the pit with your own characters too. But if you just wanted to be straight up about it, you could say, "Oh, look, there's a shrine," and then you can investigate it and find out if you want to go down or not. Instead of, but at that time you could also find it, go back, and make more. Your characters will probably make more plans, though. If they see it, they'll probably like, hey, let's get some hirelings, let's find some people, and let's excavate this thing safely, or as safe as we can, as opposed to you fell through a pit. Good luck, buddy. But it's really a beautiful job. And as far as the tournament goes, by the way, there is a whole list. I won't put it to the screen so I spoil anything. There's a whole list of points that you can get, pluses and minuses for things that you do or you don't do, how aggressive you are and stuff like that. I won't go through it like that, or anything like that. But this could be played to this day, quite honestly. And Dungeons & Dragons, 5th edition, I don't know, and stuff like that. Would you have to use the 1st edition? Well, I think you could, because, as long as, it's close enough and everybody's playing by the same rules, I guess it wouldn't matter if it's 5th edition or not. But as long as the points value is the same, that's what really matters here. Everybody, whether you play in 3rd edition, 1st edition, I guess it really doesn't matter what edition you're playing, because if everybody's playing by the same rules, it's okay. Okay, I'm going to let a few of these pictures fly, and don't worry, you're not going to get anything spoiled. You can't take anything into context with this stuff. Because one thing I could say about this is a real trippy module. Okay, there's just a lot of stuff going around, so you can't really get any clues. And I'll be talking about clues in a little bit. But these are illustrations where the book would tell the game master, show this to your players as you read the description. I will say this is really written well. There are sometimes you have to look into a dictionary maybe for some of you. I definitely did for some of the words. Didn't know what some things were. But overall, you get a really good feel of the rooms, and I can really feel like my characters, my players would really feel like they're there. Now, as far as clues go, that's one of the things I learned is I think as D&D has evolved or changed, I won't say evolved, I'll say change anymore. It used to be evolve, and that was true with all games, whether it be Warhammer, Magic, whatever, BattleTech, games would evolve to a point. They would get better and better. Now I think they just kind of rotate their tires, quite honestly. And we could see that from people playing the old school style of D&D and saying something was lost along or changed and maybe lost along the way. I guess that depends on the game master. But one of the things that I notice is about clues. Okay, when you go through this, it does not give you any clues to give to the players. That's all up for the game master to decide, or taking cues from how curious the players are poking and prodding at things. So it's always a risk reward kind of thing, and a lot of these, like I said, were very deadly. Some of them were just little pokes and jabs at you. A lot of things to scare you. That's for sure. One of the mechanics that I thought was interesting was about actual saving rolls, and let's get into that. All right, now this threw me for a loop here when I was like mind blown. Kid you not. I was like, why don't they do this now? Because the thing is, ability scores before 3rd edition did not exist. I didn't know that. I didn't know it at all. I always kind of assumed they were there because I was playing it. I didn't start DMing until I was in 3rd edition. But it doesn't mean I should have been familiar with it. I just always took it to gospel that, you basically do what a lot of game masters did. Okay, Jim, I want you to do a strength check. Roll a d20, and if you get your strength or less, you pass it. Maybe modified in some way. And nowadays, in 3rd edition on, though, they put it in stone, and they give you a damage threshold number to reach, like let's say 15 for a difficult task. And you basically roll the die, and it's modified by your ability modifier. Now, this is the big problem, though. The ability modifier, and it makes sense. It's like, hey, I got an 18, you have a 10. I get a +4 and you don't. It's still only a 20% chance, basically, because every die +1 on a d20 is 5%. So you're going to tell me that on any difficult thing, that a guy with an 18, which is supposed to represent on a bell curve the creme de la creme of everybody, if you're rolling 3d6, right? Sure, we roll 4d6 for heroes, but it's based on a 3d6 bell curve or a 3 to 18 bell curve. The 18 is supposed to represent the creme de la creme. You're going to tell me the guy with 18's only got a 20% chance more to do a certain feat than a guy with a 10? Are you kidding me? It never made sense mathematically to me, and I've always known that, but the way they do it here actually makes more sense. Dig this. There are numerous cases in here where you got to worry about slipping and falling. It's a wet, damp, a place, okay? They have you roll 2d6, and on a 5 or less, you fall down. Okay, fine. Modified by your ability modifier and dexterity. Now, do those +3s matter? Now, a guy with a 0 is just rolling straight and hopefully not getting a 5. But all of a sudden now, the guys that got the 18 dexterity, they're never going to pretty much fall down unless they roll snake eyes. That is so much better. It makes the heroes feel like heroes. With somebody's abilities is going to pay off. While the other ones, it doesn't really matter. I've never liked that about the Dungeons & Dragons system. Numerically, I had it in my head that, it's not really, it doesn't make any sense. There's a few other systems that, I could critique on something like that as well. But basically, as far as Dungeons & Dragons, I've always known that, man, is this the way to go? One thing I would say about this module is you definitely can run it on any edition if you want to, whether first edition, fifth edition, yes, even fourth edition can run this. It's just that you need that old school feel, though. You want that aesthetic of the magic that's not everywhere. It's every edition, not just because of the rules, but because of what they've done as far as a company just trying to make things wider. It's just high fantasy, right? Magic is everywhere. There's technology, for crying out loud. I mean, it's just so much that sometimes less. This is definitely where less is more campaign. Okay, because there's so many cool things that could happen to your characters on a permanent level that it would get dwarfed and thrown away in these high magic worlds that Dungeons and Dragons has evolved to mainstream. So having read the Hidden Shrine of Tamoachan from front to back, now I definitely want to get my hands on the Ghost Tower of Inverness. That's the module C2, competition number 2. And that is my last point here, is to talk about the competition side of these modules. Now, I definitely see this is something that, like, for instance, I would love to run this and run it multiple times with multiple groups to say who did the best. That would be fine, and that would be based on my interpretation of it. Now, the only thing, being a guy that's ran conventions before, I definitely know that if you're trying to get this all done within a weekend, you got a lot of people signing up. You're going to have multiple game masters that are going to play, and they're all going to have to know the rules and know this module like back and forth. And basically, you know, my thought is, how does the arbitrary nature of interpretation of what the characters would do make it fair with all these game masters having their own style of interpretation? So basically, if a character does something to statue X, I mean, what Game Master A might do something different than Game Master B and C and so forth. So how is that exactly fair, right? And my thought is maybe it's more of these early competitions were more like a church bowling league where they weren't that serious. They were having a competition, but it was just in fun. And I'm thinking of the gaming hippie aesthetic early in gaming before the Magic the Gathering hit. I would think that would be the way that it would go. And I talked about that with none other, by the way, than Alex Gygax when I was visiting Lake Geneva. I got to meet him, and I'll talk about that in my video about me going to Lake Geneva and going to the museum and such. But anyway, I'll see you in that video. Have a good day.